Okay, then let's go to screen share and we'll look at this evening's image. Right, I think it's up on your screens, isn't it?
Yeah.
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 Okay, then I'll zoom in. Right. So as we can see, it's a it's a winter subject, snow on the ground. It's not overcomplicated, this. I know I sent out an email a bit late this evening saying we can do it twice. And then the second time we can just experiment with it a little bit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the first thing to note, other than it's a winter snowy scene, is the high horizon line. You know where the horizon line is now. It's here, of course, where the
Mm-hmm.
cursor is. Okay. So it's a little bit over halfway up, I suspect, isn't it? So obviously the artist is wanting to get the river in. And so that's why we got a high horizon line on this. The snow on the left-hand side on this field here, obviously that's the white paper, similar around here. Now that's an awful lot of white there. So I might go in with a sort of a pale cerulean just to break up the whiteness a little bit. We'll see. Once again, this is a limited palette, isn't it? The sky, well, it's up to you what you do with the sky. I'll probably play safe and just go with a cerulean blue, maybe a touch of grey. I'll keep it safe. Then if we look at the way off in the horizon, there's some hills way in the distance. Then the next thing are these trees here suggested again. It's just a darker version actually than the hills, isn't it?
Mm, yeah.
Okay. And in the middle distance, we've got this big what appears like an oak tree. That's probably burnt sienna, bit of raw umber. So it's limited palette. Then coming a bit further towards us, I suspect this color here is just simply a paint gray. And then there's on these edges of the river, diluted. Again, that could be burnt umber. Raw sienna, I should say. But once again, you can go to the colors that you want to use. And then, of course, we come now to the tree on the right-hand side. Again, there's just a few brush strokes, isn't it? Okay. And then, of course, we've got the reflections. So I think this is quite a straightforward one. You see how we get on. And then there should be enough time to do a quick experimental one, which I'll explain when we get a bit closer to it. Any questions on this?
Yes.
Go on.
Roy, on the left, just on the horizon line,
Yeah.
is is that a castle or
A
is it
castle.
are they trees?
Yeah, they're
Are they
trees.
buildings?
Yeah, no,
Are they
no,
trees?
they'd be trees, Ian. Yeah, because they're on the
Okay.
same line as this tree here. So I would treat
Yeah,
those
okay.
as trees. Good question, though, because it could almost be a castle, couldn't it? It could.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I just thought when I saw it, it looked like a
yeah,
castle.
so it's a good question because it could be a building, but I suspect. But it's a good question, though. I suspect they're trees. But
Just
yeah,
thought I saw some chimney pots. Yeah.
well, that's
Okay.
right. Yes. If we sort of zoom in a little bit. Oh, the wrong way. If you zoom in, but it's up to you. I
Mm.
mean, if you want to put but I suspect they're like cypress trees. I suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as I mentioned earlier, it's limited colors, so you can go with your own colors, obviously. I'm going to use burnt sienna, Payne's grey, cerulean blue, bit of ultramarine blue, and keep it relatively simple. Okay. So if there's no more questions, I'll come off it and then I'll go to second camera. I'm working A3 size again. As I was saying to Ian and Dave earlier, I do rather like to work a bit bigger than A3, which I can do it on a Zoom class. It's not too much of an issue. Right, so if we stop here, okay, then if I go then to camera, right, so here we go. A3 size, watercolour paper. I was in two minds. I just mentioned about going bigger with lining paper, but no, I'll leave it. Now let's just come to the image. So once again, I said the horizon line is quite high up because the artist finds that this field and the water quite important. So just check. Yes, it's just slightly more than halfway up. So I'll go back here. But again, just to mention, you could, if you wanted to, bring the horizon line down and make more of the sky if you wanted to. So they've always got options. If I put the horizon line in just a little bit above halfway, I won't measure it. Here we go. I go for here. But that's the horizon line. Have a look. It is recording. Good. Right. And where will I go next? I suspect, again, the other thing I find out is, as you know, where is the center line? And it could be around here, couldn't it? It is. So the center line is as good as around here, you see. So that's always useful to find out. There we go, just a touch more. Back a little bit. So the center line is here. So once again, the reason for finding that center line is you now know what's to the left of that line, what's to the right. And of course, the horizon line is there. Makes life much easier. Where would you start? It doesn't really matter. You might start with going along the horizon line first, or the river. I'll start with this tree first of all. And as we can see, it's virtually on the center line. Here we go. And it's coming down just slightly below the horizon line because it's a bit closer to us than those off in the distance. Don't go too big. I'm only on A3. So I've marked out this, what I presume to be an oak tree. Something off in the distance there. Then we come to another clump of trees here. Gets me to about here. And then as Ian pointed out, this structure here, which I presume are trees, but equally it might be a castle, but there we go. And then of course, off in the distance, we got that line of hills. And they come over to here as well. Moving to the right now, we got a few trees off in the distance here. Again, I'm just marking them in. Then we come to this tree, a bit closer to us. There we go. And then finally, the tree here. Once again, I'm just marking out roughly where it's going to go. So that's that section done. Now we come to the river itself. Once again, you see where the center line is? That's its vanishing point, as it were, just slightly below the horizon line. Slightly below. And then it comes off into this corner here. And I can tweak all this in the painting process. Right. Okay, then I can finish off this other side of the river. Remember, it's going off to a point there, virtually. And we don't see much of the bank on this side. It's coming off and roughly around there. And then we get a sneak, a little bit more of it coming, jutting out here. And that's the drawing done. Any questions on that? Just let me know. Here's a machine. I just go and welcome machine. As I said, it's a limited palette. Feel free to use what other colors appeal to you. I'm going, as I just said, back to the tubes of paint rather than working from the dry pans, because then it's a lot quicker to get the values. Right. For the greys, what shall I do? Well, I go from the usual mix of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. That will give me grey. Burnt sienna. I can mix the two together. I put some. I'm inclined to go for a cerulean blue on this one for the lower part of the sky. So cerulean blue. Um, some yellow ochre and raw sienna. Yellow ochre, raw sienna. And I think that's likely to be it. I could put a green there. But once again, if you want to use other colors, feel free. See, I'm using a porcelain palette. Burnt sienna. Raw sienna, I should say. And some yellow ochre. So I think that's the colors done. I'll make the washes in a moment. I'll make them now. And then, of course, do a little test. Find me that. There we go. So this will be the grey. Cerulean blue for the sky. Just a little bit here. I'm only working A3 size. Mix the grey. And as you can see, the reason I'm using the tubes as opposed to the pans is because straight away you can get the real strength value, tonal value. Yes, do a little test. Spare bit of paper, which I had a few moments ago. This one. That's okay because that's going to lighten up. And then into that, or, no, I'll do it this way. Burnt sienna now, and that's going to give me grey. Maybe just a touch on the blue side, so I'll up the burnt sienna. Okay, so I'll stick with that. That's to indicate some clouds, I think, in the sky. I'll leave the other colors. Oh, sorry, the cerulean blue, but I need that for the sky. Cerulean blue. Maybe just a little bit stronger. So my sky won't be quite as grey as the one we're working from. So I've got the colours ready. Pop that back there. The next question, of course, with the sky, do we work wet onto dry, wet onto wet? So I haven't yet decided. Okay. I'm inclined to go wet onto damp on this one, but there's no hard and fast rule, as you know. Then I put in the cerulean blue, and then I'll add some greys. I'll do it that way. But I don't want to saturate the paper. I want to keep control of the flow of the paint. So I'm barely dampening it. Down to the top of the hills, through this tree. So I've dampened mine. I can see it's dry there, so just go back and wet that. Okay then. Now the cerulean blue, I'm using a 1-inch brush. This is, even though this is only A3 size. And cerulean blue is quite light. So that's that first part done. Now I don't quite like the cerulean blue. I'll darken it up a fraction. I'm going to darken it up a fraction, particularly the top of the sky. There we go. And of course, you have to leave it. In a moment, I'm going to put the grey in. It's probably a touch too early. It might get a little bit messy. So what I'm going to do, just very quickly, is take the hairdryer to it. Only for a few seconds. Only for a few seconds. I've just muted myself. So I've just taken the hairdryer briefly to it. Now I'm not stretched this paper, so it has cockled a little bit. Back to my wide brush. Now I'm going to put in some grey. There we go. And very quickly, I'm going to leave it at that. Because you, as I keep saying, you understand the problems. So that's the sky done. But I must leave it. The temptation is to keep going back, playing around with it. But I leave it now. So the sky is done. I could now, while that's drying off, come down and do something with the river. And as we can see, water will reflect what's happening around it. So in this instance, this is reflecting the sky. Okay. What I could have done, and I'm always forgetting, found some candle wax, put a speckly effect in. Oh, there it is here. Just for the benefit, I think I'm not sure if I've explained this today. This is just ordinary candle wax, Dave, and I can put in a sparkly effect here. We don't see it actually on this image, but what it will do, I'll rub it on in a moment. Be sparing of it, you don't want it too much. Here we go. When I come to apply the paint in a moment, the candle wax will act as a resist and retain the white of the paper. So I'm a bit, it might be a little bit strong, this grey. Do I need to weaken it? Let me have a look. No, I get away with it. So now I've got two options. I think I'll dampen again. I want to dampen again. Here we go. Now I've used purposely the cleaning water, purposely. And already you can see where the candle wax is acting as a resist. Now I go to the grey. And I always go horizontal when it comes to water. Once again, there's that the candle wax. And of course, once again, don't overpaint. So I can leave it now. That's the water done for the moment. And there's the the candle wax here. I can treat the river in a little while. It's now just coming up 7:30. While mine is drying, I think I'll do a quick tour around while mine is drying. Otherwise, I could come back to the horizon line. That will be the next place I'll go and work around there. But I'll just put it off for a few moments. I just do a quick check then, please. Okay, if I can go to Dave first, and then Ian.
Yep.
Then Joe. Right, Dave. Yeah, that's looking okay. I think you got away with the river at the moment, Dave. Okay. Now, you're going to have a little bit of an issue, I think, with copying as well, because the paper isn't stretched, is it? You just got
no, it's not.
That's it. So don't worry about, but as long as you understand, that's the reason.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, that's the reason. I'm trying to get rid of that. Right, okay. If I can go to Ian next then, please. Right, Ian.
Okay.
Right. What size are you working, Ian?
I'm going small, A4.
Ah, I thought it was okay. That's fair enough. And looking at it from here, you seem to be doing okay. You're not overbrushing, so it's looking okay at the moment, Ian. Good. Okay, Ian. Many thanks. Oh, right. If we go to Candy next, please, and then to Tim. So Candy.
Think I've got a bit of a problem of it drying here.
Yeah. I'd be tempted to leave it though.
Don't go in and try and.
Well, if it is it actually dry? If it's still moist, you could go back over it. You could if it's and it would sort of bleed together, blend together.
Yeah.
If it's
I'll try that. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, then you could try that. If it's still a little bit damp, reapply some of the paint. Right, we go to Tim next then, please. Right, Tim. Right. That's looking okay, Tim, isn't it? Yes. It won't make much sense yet. You can always go back and tweak the river, obviously, but I leave the sky. That's looking okay, Tim. Excellent. Right. Okay. Oh, if I can go to next then, Joe then, please. And then, of course, to Rasheen. To Joe, and then finally to Rasheen. That's looking okay again, Joe. From here, it is. Once again, you can go back to that river and tweak that eventually. So thanks, Joe.
Okay.
And then finally to Rasheen, please. Oh, okay. It's dribbled down a little bit. Go on, I won't. Yeah, okay. That's all right. It's looking okay, Rasheen. We won't spend too much. It's just dripping a little bit. Okay, everyone. So it's back to mine. Right. As often with a watercolor, they don't look very exciting at this point. Once again, now where do I go next? Well, usually we work from top to bottom, from the distance coming forward. So obviously along this horizon line now, starting off with the hills in the distance. And it's now going to be working really wet onto dry. So as we know, I'm working to a limited palette. So I'm just wondering if I can, this grey here, I'm just going to do a little test on a spare bit of paper again. I want to deal with the hills off in the distance. They need to be quite light. That might be okay. I wish I had a bit more water to it. So I'm just putting it into another container. And I'm just going to dilute it a little bit. That's better, because it will dry off again. So I'm using now a number 10, and I can start off putting in it does not matter if I put the light value all the way through here, because as we can see, the trees coming towards us are a bit darker again. So it's not a problem me putting the hills in right down to the horizon line, because the trees below or on the horizon line are darker. So working wet onto dry. Here we go. And once again, of course, least brushing the better. And as I just mentioned, it's not a problem bringing it down to the horizon line. Or even through that tree there. And picking up again here. Once again, not a problem bringing it down a little bit. I will skim through that tree. Same here, really. And that's the hills in the distance done. And where do I go next? Well, that needs to dry off now, obviously, before I can tweak along there. I could, as you know, take the hairdryer to it, which I sort of inclined to do a little bit along here before I start with this tree and coming forward. So I'm inclined to take the hairdryer to it briefly. So I'll do that. So I've just taken the hairdryer to it, and I'll now, again, as you're more than aware, the painting can still look a bit bland because we've essentially been blocking in. It's only when you start to add the details it comes more alive. Okay, I better just mute everyone so the camera doesn't switch. There we go. So I've muted everyone at the moment. Okay, back to mine. As I just mentioned, I can now work along the horizon line here. And again, repeating myself, feel free to use whatever colors you prefer along that section. I'm going to stick more or less to the colors I see here, purely for convenience. So I'll start off with these trees. And as I mentioned again a little while, really, the trees going along here, on that area, it's just slightly darker than the hills. So I'm going to go back to my palette and just strengthen it a little bit to separate it from the hills. A bit more burnt sienna. But once again, do a test. So yes, I'll go with that. Maybe just a touch more blue and then leave it. It's slightly a different version of the color, which again will help bring it forward. So I'll go with that. There we go. So once again, I'm not trying to copy the trees we see here, because as Ian pointed out, it could well be a castle, but that's done. Continue along then to the trees here. I'm now using the side of the brush. And also I'm leaving some of the hills peeping through. So once again, I'm doing my version of trees along here. And then the bigger tree is going to go here. I'll continue along to this section. And I'm going to change that grey slightly. And I'll just put a bit more burnt sienna in. And just to show you. Just a touch more burnt sienna. Now, it is good practice to do what I'm doing here. To test the colour. So now I continue along. I'm almost ready to put that tree in. Right, burnt sienna. I'll do that first. Here we go. Burnt sienna. Again, I'm leaving gaps in it. And I can come back and tweak it in a little while. So that's that tree in. Then I continue along this section. I'm going to take a little bit of that colour into here, just to darken that tree a little bit. Then I leave it. When we come to the tree here, a bit closer to us, so I can go darker again, because it's a touch closer. So I'm going to go back to this combination, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. We'll do a little test. So I'm happy with that. And here's that tree. Again, leaving some of the sky peeping through. And because it's closer to us, I have got to bring it down a bit further. Here we go. To there. So as you can see, I'm going along that horizon line, or just below the horizon line. It's coming up to 20 minutes to 8. So in 4 minutes, we'll take our usual break. So that gives me time to deal with this tree, this main tree here. What do I use? Again, it's down to yourselves. I'm inclined to go. That's raw sienna. Raw sienna, a little bit of grey in it, I think. Let's try it. So I'm going for raw sienna, and I'll put some grey into it. Or I put the raw sienna down first and put the grey on top. So just to demonstrate, there's always more than one way to do it. I shouldn't be doing the test over the actual painting, but I'm being a bit lazy. So I could put the raw sienna down, and as it dries off, some of this dark grey. Here we go. So I'm going to take a bit of a chance. I'm going to put raw sienna down here, and then put that grey that I was using a bit earlier on top of it. I'm just going to strengthen it up a little bit. As I keep mentioning, there's always more than one way to do something. If there was a brighter day, I could probably get away with just using this raw sienna, the sunlight hitting the tree. Right. I just give it a few moments, and then I put this dark grey on top. Let it dry off a little bit. Go on, I'll take a chance. It might be a touch early. Here we go. And it will sort itself out. And I leave it. I can bring that down a bit closer to. So my tree is slightly different to the one we're working from. There we go. But now I'm going to leave it, otherwise you know the danger. The less painting, the better. Right. As I keep saying, no, leave it. It's now 7:45. So if you want to have a break, feel free. Okay, so I'm just going to bring this tree down a touch more, indicate its trunk. So here we go. Just brought it down. It's a bit closer to us. Then I can indicate its trunk about here. Now I can put in a shadow, because that's what we detect here. Shadow. And for that, I can go back to this grey sky. And with the tip of the brush, there we go. And I've indicated shadow. I've got to come back and tweak around here. What I will do is I'm going to be lazy, well, say lazy. Just up the Payne's grey. And all I want to do is just create, before I come down to the foreground, a bit more activity. So I've just mixed or squeezed out some Payne's grey. It was the tip of the brush. So as you can see, I'm now going along here. And I could, the water on the brush, not too much. Just spread it a little bit. But you don't want them too obvious. That's fine. It's just to catch the eye. Which brings me next then to, I'll come back and deal with the snow in a little while. And I mentioned about putting some green in here. That would be muted green. I'm keeping the colours to a minimum. So if I mix some cerulean blue with yellow ochre, that would give me a green or a version of green. And a little bit of a, here we go. So coming along to this bank here, I'm using the side of the brush. And this is that mixture of green, cerulean blue, and yellow ochre. Once again, as you can see, I'm doing my version. I better mute everyone so we don't get too much clutter, I should say. There we go. Otherwise, sometimes the camera would switch from me to yourselves. Right, there we go. So I need to go a bit darker here as well, because it's a bit closer to us. So I'll go for some burnt sienna. And just put a little bit, well, I'll put a bit of yellow there. Once again, I'm simply keeping the colours to a minimum. And because it's closer, that's fine. I'll perhaps add a reflection later. Something similar over here. I was going to reach out for my Perennial green. Have I got it here? I don't think I have. I got the Hooker's green. So if I squeeze out a bit of Hooker's green, rather than me go searching for my Peryllian green, and darken that with some blue. Here it is. That's the Hooker's green. I'm going to use blue, but equally I could use burnt sienna, raw sienna. Here's the blue. Here's not much there actually. Ultramarine. And on this side, I might just, no, I better be careful there. I'm going to go over it with some burnt, there we go. I'll go over it with some burnt sienna. And that's as much as I perhaps need to do there anyway. Here we go. Maybe a little bit in there. Maybe a touch of that over here. So this was actually the Hooker's green with a little bit of that grey I mixed up earlier. I've done the same here. I can now indicate the reflections here. So what I do here, I clean the brush, take the excess water off, and just simply stroke it down a little bit. There we go. So remember, I've taken the excess water off because you don't want to deposit water there, otherwise you get into a mess. Take the excess water off, just leave the brush damp. Here we go. And just stroke it down while the paint is wet. The reflections. Then I might just tweak along here. In a moment, I think I better come round and have a look. I tweak along here a little bit to distinguish the edge of the bank at that point. Right, I'm going to pause for a moment. Now, as I pointed out earlier on, it can look quite bland, a painting, any painting, when you're just putting in or blocking in. Now we're starting to come more alive now. And in a moment, it's only 8:05. It's just a question of me tweaking things. That sky, as you can see, is settled down very well. There's always a temptation to want to go back and fiddle with it. But at the moment, everything is sitting quite nicely there. So now's the time for me to come around and take a look at what you're doing, how far you've got. Right, so if I can come to Dave first, followed by Ian, and then Joe. So Dave first. Right, Dave. Good. Now that tree works much better now. Much better, Dave.
Yeah.
And you're nice and loose as well. So on the whole, I'd be pleased with this. Once you do some tweaking, Dave, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
I'm not very happy with it, but it could be worse.
No, you're doing okay. You are. I mean, one of the most important things is the paper that you're working on. What sort of paper are you working on, Dave?
Just plain watercolour paper, cellulose rather than cotton.
Okay, then right. I will see you tomorrow. So can you bring it to class tomorrow?
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah.
Yeah, if you will, I can have a closer look at it and we can discuss it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, then. So that's Dave. And then we were going to go to Ian and then to Joe.
Okay, I abandoned this in the tea break. I've started on a big splashy one.
Okay, then. Why did you abandon the other one, Ian?
It's too small, it's too fiddly, and the trees are awful.
Yeah. Okay, then. Right. Well, the good news here is you've applied the watercolor. Okay, you have. Yeah, you don't want to do too much else to this one, really, do you? What you want to tweak, obviously, is where the trees meet the bank or the ground. Okay, tweak that area.
That's okay. Tomorrow morning with a fine brush.
Well, you don't necessarily a fine brush. Take the clues. Take the clues from the image. Yeah. Okay, Joe, please, and then we'll go to Candy and then Rasheen. So Joe next. And that's looking good, Joe. Yes, well done, Joe. It's looking good, that. Good. I think you'll be pleased with that. So it needs some tweaking very soon. So well done, Joe. Good.
Thank you.
And then, of course, we can go to Candy, then Rasheen. Oh, well done again, Candy. That's looking good. That big tree in the distance, I would have left some gaps through it, peeping to get the sky peeping through.
Which one?
Yes, that big one. That big, yeah.
This
The
one
you've
here?
used yes, the bigger tree. Yeah, behind it.
Yeah.
I would have left some of the gaps peeping through.
Do you want
Otherwise,
me to try and lift it out?
no, I'd leave it. But what you could do is white gouache, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Just pop in a little bit of white gouache.
Yeah.
Because the rest of it is looking good. Now, you need to do your tweaks, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay. But well, are you happy with it? I think you probably are, because it's a good effort looking at it from here.
Yeah, reasonably happy with it. Yeah.
Good, that's it. Okay, then. So I'll leave that for the moment.
Thank you.
Okay, Rasheen, please. And then we'll go to Tim. All right, Rasheen. That's looking quite interesting, Rasheen. It's looking good. Yeah, I like that. It's looking very good. Again, it needs tweaking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's then we'd perhaps deal with that snow on the field on the left-hand side. You caught the tree on the right-hand side very, very nicely. The ones in the distance, they sit nicely as well. Just needs a little bit of tweaking where they meet the snow. Okay. Otherwise, that's looking good. So well done, Rasheen. Okay, then, Tim, please. Right, Tim. Yes, you got away with it up to now, haven't you? You got away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The trees on the horizon line, on the whole, they're not too bad. The one on the right-hand side, on the edge, I wouldn't tweak that much, because I suspect once you indicate some branches and possibly the trunk, it'll sit all right. But you probably need to go darker where it meets the bank of the river, don't you? Where it's getting at least sunlight.
I haven't touched it since I
That's
put
okay
the
then.
colour
No,
down, so.
that's absolutely fine. Where you've tweaked or indicated the bank of the river on the left-hand side, as you look at your picture, that's absolutely fine. You just got to increase the tonal values, haven't you? They're a bit weak.
Yeah.
And once you do that, they really come forward. Okay, like 1/3 of the way along that bank, as it were. That's good. So on the whole, yes, and a few tweaks here and there, I think you're okay. So well done again. Right, so okay, then so it's back to mine. I better just mute everyone again. Before I do some more final tweaks, it's this snow area on the right-hand side, plus a little bit of the river. Okay, so there's quite a big expanse here of white paper. Yes, we know it's meant to be snow. I think I'm going to break this up a little bit. With snow, when you look at paintings which have snow in them, there's only about sort of 5, no more than 10%, which is pure white. The rest of it is shadow. Now, I tend to go for, and very often they're blue shadows. If I just grey that a little bit. So this is cerulean blue, but I'm just going to put a little bit of grey in there, or just to break up the density of the blue itself. Still a touch blue. So I'm greying it off a little bit. Just a bit more. I don't want it too blue. No, a bit more again, fair enough. And then I may have to dilute it to weaken it as well, because I don't want it strong. Right, so I'll go with that. But I don't want it strong, so I'm going to add some water to that mix to dilute it. So I've diluted it. Now we know it's going to lighten off, so I could stick with that. I dilute it just a touch more, just to show it is in here. So I've been diluting it. Okay, I'll go for that because it will lighten up once it dries off. So this is to break up this area a little bit. Okay. No more than what I've suggested there. No more. Off into the distance a little bit. I will dilute it a touch more because it's going to be off in the distance. So I diluted it further. Here we go. And then I leave it. That's fine. I've broken up that area. I can do something similar where it meets the water here. Here we go. So that's looking a lot better. Then we got the reflections to consider, haven't we? So the water is dry. I know the reflections. So this tree here, here we go. So I'm now putting in the reflections of that tree. So that's done. Yes, there's reflections of this tree here. I'll just tweak along there a little bit and then put in this reflection. Here we go. And that's done. And then I'm just going to sort of along here a little bit, just to break up that river a little bit there. And I'm just done a few brush strokes here. What I might do in this immediate foreground is go darker. So once again, I'd be best to do a test. Okay, I'll go with that. Because this is the closest to us. As you can see, I'm just darkening up now the river in the foreground. It's the closest area to us. And then I can come back and suggest here some branches. So now I go to a zero brush. It is a zero. Go back to this grey, burnt sienna. And now I'm going to indicate some branches. And maybe the trunk. There we go. Just be sparing with them. And broken lines, remember, as opposed to continuous lines. And that will help create points of interest. I don't think I'll bother. I was inclined to indicate branches on that one, but I'm going to leave that. That's off in the distance, so I'll leave it. Now, I'm inclined to leave mine now as a finished piece. I could tweak it a bit more, but I think I'll resist it. Maybe just here. I'm just going to tweak here a little bit in the foreground because this is the closest area to us. Right. So I'm going to leave mine at this point. Find them out. Here we go. So very quickly, there's the horizon line. As a repeat of the first one in the composition. Some hills in the distance. That's that main tree. Trees there. And from time to time, we need to experiment, all of us, because that's when you learn. The more chances you take. And there's the tree. Briefly, the river. Right, and it goes off to a point there. Look at the banking. Now, it's just after 8:30. So there's my drawing done very quickly. At this point, I don't have a plan. I'm just going to go for it. Now, clearly, I could sit down for 10 minutes and work out a more careful paint, couldn't I? What colour is going to go where and so forth. So I could plan this a bit more carefully. But given the time, I'm just going to go for it. So I'm going to start off with the sky. And now the choice again is, do I work wet on to dry or wet on to damp? I may as well stick to wet on to dry because then I can flow the paint around and just rework where necessary. So clearly now, I'm taking a big chance because all sorts of things could happen. So I'm going to lose control of it to some degree. But what I don't want to do, of course, is just to try and do a repetition of that. So taking a deep breath, I'll take my big brush and I'm going to paint for a semi-abstract and hope for the best. So on the top of the sky, cerulean blue, ultramarine, there we go, big brush strokes, and I'm bringing that down to here, you see, good. Once you make a start, you've got to let the instinct take over. Into that river. I don't know if anyone else is having to go, but otherwise just watch me. There we go. So I'm working semi-abstract. I got some cerulean blue. So I'm adding that now. Back into the river. There we go. So I've done that. Take it through there a little bit. Now, obviously the paint is wet, but you see how quickly I did that. Now I got to this point, this is when really the excitement creeps in. But I keep repeating, I'm going to try and do this in a few minutes. So maybe I'll come into here with the burnt sienna. So maybe I'll keep it an autumn scene. Now, because that's still wet, there we go. And I'm trying to, there's a tree. Another one there. A few more off on the horizon. There we go. Reflections there. Bit of ultramarine blue, bit of burnt sienna. Reflections, there we go, into the river there. You see? Then I can pick out the bank of the river. In fact, I forgot all about it being a snow scene in a way. So you can see what I've done there quite quickly. Then I can add some green. So I'm not trying to recreate a snow scene here. I'm just going for it. Here's some green. And I want it to bleed with the other paint. I want it to be semi-abstract. So I think I've achieved that. So in other words, I just want to give enough information as to what this might represent. Sky, trees, water. And of course, a lot of that paint is still wet. What do I do now? Just very quickly, I'm going to take the hairdryer to it, just for a few seconds. So I got to this point. So if I just mute myself and take the hairdryer to it, just bear with me. Okay, so I've taken the hairdryer to it. Now I'm following my instinct again. I've missed out the hills there, so maybe then I'm still using this big brush. Maybe I'm marking some hills in the distance. Oh, there's a big tree there as well, isn't it? Oh, there we go. Right, and then maybe just off in the distance. Right, very quickly, reflection of this tree in the river. Now I dried this off, so with a thin brush again, I could indicate but I got to be careful because I want to keep it semi-abstract. So I don't want to do. And then coming along the river here. So in a moment, I'll be inclined to stop. So in painting time, that's probably taken me, I don't know, 4 minutes. Now I'm going to stop. Otherwise, there's just a temptation to keep working it, and it could get messy. But I did that in painting time in about 5 minutes. You're taking chances. Right, if I put the mount around it, there we go. I don't know if anyone else has had a go. Any comments on what I've just done here? Oh, I don't think they're watching any.
I like it. Looks good.
Do you like it?
I was watching, yeah. I enjoyed that. It was good.
Kind to me. Right, let's just come off it then. Remove spotlight. Okay, then. Oh, right. So a couple have had a go.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
let's just go to, right, Ian, you've had a go. Let's see if anyone else does. Oh, there you go, Ian. So you've done that in how many minutes?
Same as you.
Oh, hey, come on now. Good. Well done. Hey, well done. Yeah, excellent. Because you don't have time to mess around, do you? The application of paint is very good. Well done, Ian. Has anyone else had a go? Oh, Candy has. Okay, then. That's the idea, Candy. Great. Go on, what do you think of it?
It's all right.
Yes,
I just didn't think about it. It was just right, get the paint on.
that's exactly it. That's look at that.
Go for it.
You caught the river, and that's absolutely great. Anyone else want to comment?
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
I think you've done okay there. That's excellent.
Thank you.
But that foreground, the river, you caught really well. I mean, that is abstract, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Did anyone else have a go?
Yeah, had a go.
Oh, right, Dave.
Very different, but hey.
But I know it's meant to be different. But again, you're on the right track, Dave. You've got to let yourself go a bit better, a bit more, haven't you? You're still trying to copy it. Now, that's only natural because you haven't done this in the past, Dave, have you?
No, I haven't, no.
No, but you'll be doing more of it in class at some point, you will. So well done, but you've had a go. That's the critical thing. Right. Anyone else have a go? No?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, right, Rasheen. Okay, then. Excellent. Yes, I love that sky. It's a really wintry sky there, and that glow across the top of the horizon. Now, you could spend another 5 minutes just tweaking around the foreground, really, particularly the grasses are sprouting up out of the water. But go on, what do you think, having done that?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of like it as much as the one that we took a lot longer.
That's it. It is, isn't it? Yes, because you're putting a lot of your instinctiveness into it. So well done. Yes, just the odd tweak here and there, but well done, Rasheen. Good. Right. So well done, everyone. Let me just come off Rasheen. Back to the review. Right. So well done. I'll just come off this. Right, there we go. Okay, then, well, I'll let you go off in a moment. I'll update you over the week, unless anyone's got any suggestions. So next week, because this was a relatively easy one, if I gain next week, just a bit more complicated. Now, I don't know if you've got any suggestions as to what other sort of subjects you'd like to tackle. Does anyone have any subjects?
Wait,
Go
just
on.
thinking about something like a canal scene where it's a bit more regular, a bit more linear.
Right. The canal boats, or just a
Canal where this is all very loose because it's snow and rivers.
yeah.
Canals are a bit straighter and
Well, last week, of course, it was quite the opposite, wasn't it? That's why I thought this week we'd
yeah,
change
okay.
tact, as it were. Does anyone else have any suggestions then? So Ian thinks of something a bit more linear, which might be a canal. Now, you don't have to just sit there trying to invent something. You might be quite happy with what we're doing. The only thing I was thinking of, maybe we could go back to including more figures into the painting.
Yeah.
Does that okay then? But I say I'm not forcing suggestions upon you, or you could have a think about it and pass it on in an email. Okay.
I think,
Right.
am I on? Or anything? Yeah, I think figures would be good.
Figures, yeah.
Yeah.
Figures. Yeah.
Okay then. Yes, I think we can return back to doing a little bit of figurative work because people are very often reluctant to put them into a painting. And I think, again, we are think out of the box a little bit, hey, when it comes to figures. You know, again, make them a bit more like what we're just doing here. I got a couple of images in mind. Okay, then. So maybe we'll look at a bit more figurative work over the next couple of weeks, putting figures in, but not solely photographic figures, being, again, a little bit more adventurous with them. Right. Okay. So I'll hang on to the last person leaves. And other than that, I'll update you again in a couple of days' time.
Okay. Thank you, Roy. Bye,
Right.
everyone.
Yeah.
See you next week.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, Roy. Bye, everyone.